So, this is Dr. Brandy Marks, biblical licensed mental health counselor, and today we're looking at the commitment. It's a leap of faith, kind of like believing. Last week, you assessed your beliefs and came to a better understanding of how faulty beliefs can encourage your failure, not succeeding, procrastinating, and having hopefully developed strategies for dealing with these beliefs, you are now ready to make a commitment. Take that leap of faith and to follow through and achieve your life vision, your goals, whatever you're doing with this today. Okay. A committed life. In Job, he says, I would seek and commit my cause to God. Now, this is chapter 5, and Job has already been through hell. I mean, because Satan questions God, and God says, go ahead and try Job. You know, Job lost everything, his children, home, and everything. But yet he was willing to seek God and commit his cause to him. That was amazing. Psalm 37:5 says, commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him. Proverbs 16:3, commit your way to the Lord and you will succeed. Now, there's a lot of people out there that have trouble with that and committing their way to God when they don't even quite want to even believe he exists. I work with people in counseling all the time. I have a friend who says, well, you're introducing God too soon. How can you introduce him too soon? You either going to believe or not. People that come to me, they know I'm a biblical counselor. So why do they get offended when I start talking about the Bible? I don't understand that. At any rate, let's move on. Commitment can be seen as a dedication or obligation that binds an individual to a particular cause, a person, or a course of action. We can be committed to God, to Jesus. We can be committed to a relationship, to our job, or to anything. Going back to school, for example. Fear of commitment affects us in many ways. Romantic relationships, at school, and in our workplace. Lack of commitment or fear of commitment. Well, lack of commitment often comes from a fear of commitment. For example, at work, a fear of commitment, you may avoid long-term projects which can negatively impact on your performance or your overall effectiveness. You just don't do the job that you need to be doing if you want to get ahead at work. You kind of do the least amount of work that's required to get by and earn the paycheck. How about at school? A fear of commitment here might lead you to not invest the amount of time and effort needed to reach long-term goals, a certain degree, maybe even graduate from high school. For example, a student who worries about the commitment required to succeed at college may decide not to apply. No way do I want to do all that work. I went through my PhD program. They closed it down just before I was finishing my dissertation and had to do the oral exams. So I didn't pass the oral exams. I wasn't prepared. And there was 2 other programs open, Doctor of Religious Studies or a Doctor of Arts, which would have required a huge commitment. And I chose not to do the Doctor of Arts because I wasn't prepared to take that kind of commitment. So I went for the Doctor of Religious Studies. I didn't have to do an oral exam with that one. And I was almost finished with what was required for it to begin with. I was happy. I was with that. That's where my commitment was, on a shorter term goal. Okay. Now there's always romantic commitments. Here your commitment fears may prompt you or your partner to avoid pursuit of a more stable, intimate relationship, such as getting engaged, never mind marriage. I was in a relationship for 27 years. 3 different marriage licenses, or was it 4? Oh, it doesn't matter. We never got married. We both had fear of commitment issues. Now, fear of committing may exist even when you actually desire a long-term commitment, which both of us did. But we couldn't get to that point where we actually took that leap of faith, okay? Counseling can help uncover and address these issues so you can hopefully achieve the desired outcomes. I understand the problems now because the issues I had with it. So I'm better able to help people with commitment fears. These issues may result from insecurity, attachment issues. Okay, there's the fearful avoidant. I want a committed relationship, but I'm afraid I'll be hurt. It won't last. My boyfriend, his dad had been married several times, had kids all over the place from extramarital affairs, so on and so forth. So, yeah. Dismissive avoidant. I do not need you, nor do I need you to depend upon me. I'm okay being independently alone. Anxious, preoccupied. I really want to be close to you, but I don't think you want to be close to me. At least that's what we say. Okay. So here you may already be in a committed relationship, but there are personal reasons why you maintain it. You decide to stay in the relationship because you genuinely want to maintain it, in spite of all odds and obstacles. There's the moral reasons. You commit or remain committed due to strong beliefs or values. Religious values, for example. You may wish to leave the relationship, but you stay believing it's the right thing to do. God doesn't want divorce, so you stay in a horribly dysfunctional, abusive relationship, perhaps. An individual in a relationship may come to this place, and some couples also, who then together agree to work it out for moral reasons. There's a structural commitment. You stay because of barriers, social pressures, lack of a right alternative partner. This is to avoid loneliness. You don't want to, if you get divorced, leave the relationship, kick the friendship to one side, you'll avoid loneliness. So you stay in the relationship. You stay with a certain job because you're terrified. I'm 50 years old. I'm 40 years old. There's no jobs out there for me. So I'm going to stay in this relationship, this job-oriented relationship, simply because. Maybe you stay because of the time and effort you've invested in it. You may believe I've come this far. Why give up now? Counseling might help address these issues that arise in a committed relationship when the commitment changes. For example, you may be staying in a relationship for personal reasons, but you become a Christian, for example, and you stay then for moral reasons. Whatever the cause or the reason, once you've made that commitment, stay focused, but not on just that one thing. Don't just obsess on the relationship and make it your whole life, for example. If you're an eagle, don't sit on the same tree all day. Balance the elements in your life. Get out and do things. Take care of yourself. Have a good diet. Get around socially. Check out other trees. Okay, you get the idea. Check out other life forms. In other words, don't compulsively obsess on it. If you're in a relationship, have friendships, other interests outside the relationship, the marriage. Your work life. It shouldn't be your all and everything. You need balance in life. So, as Christians, our commitment must be to God, biblically. Jesus said you are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your strength, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, even if that neighbor is an enemy and you don't get along. Find some way to make it work. Jesus is telling us every particle of who we are in our lives must be committed to loving and serving God. We hold back nothing because God holds nothing back. If you're that committed to God, you're going to be committed to your other relationships because we're ministers of reconciliation and God wants us to have stable, enduring relationships, not hit or miss, friendships that here one day and gone the next, but committed relationships. And our commitment to Him must come before all others, however, including our families, as Luke 14 says. He says, if you put your family, your job, everything else before me, because you don't trust me to be there for you, for example, or whatever, you really can't be for me. It means we either turn away from the world or we continue in the world and turn away from Christ. If you can't make that kind of commitment to God, you can't be one of Jesus' disciples and walk with Him. It's just not going to happen. I've had clients come to counseling who were professed Christians, but never read the Bible. They really had no relationship with God or the Lord Jesus. By the time they left counseling, they did, but their success, their peace of mind, their stability increased monumentally the deeper the relationship, the intimate relationship with Christ became. Their lives stabilized, their relationship stabilized and became better. Those that chose not to, they continued to have problems as a rule. So commit your way to the Lord. Your plans will be established. They will succeed, in other words. If anyone desires to come after me, Jesus said, deny your selfish ways. Take up your cross and follow me. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Now, in Jesus' day, if you believed in Him, you could very well be hauling a real actual cross down the street and be hung up on it and die on it. And so, in other words, those whose faith is superficial, Jesus was challenging them to either go deeper, commit to Him and His way of life, or turn back to the world's way of life. So, I am not the one living now, Paul said. It is Christ living in me. I still live in my body, the flesh, of course, but I live by faith in the Son of God alone, who loved me and gave it. And, oh, excuse me. Who loved me and gave himself to save me from myself by giving his life for me. Okay, let's look at some homework for this section and explore how you're going to commit and achieve in thought, word, and deed. Now consider the story of David and Goliath. David went to Saul's army to take some food there for the soldiers. His brothers were fighting in the army. He saw the giant, and he saw the army soldiers running away from this giant in absolute terror. But David says, hey, what's in it for me? What's my reward if I kill the giant? Well, his brother said, oh, go home and tend the sheep. What are you doing here anyway, leaving them to themselves? But he said, has not God brought me here for a reason? Hey, come on, there's a reason my being here. He asked again, someone else, not his brothers, what's my reward if I kill the giant Goliath? They gave him a respectful answer. You get to marry the king's daughter and you're going to be rich and never have to pay taxes again. So while his motivation was recognizing God had brought him to that place, he wanted to know what the personal motivation was. Hey, money, power, and wealth. All right, sounded good to David. So he went to fight the giant with the skills God had provided for him. You know, a slingshot and some stones he picked up out of the creek bed, not the armor that the army provided for him. And that's what we have to work with. What did David had? He was committed to God. Has not God brought me here for a reason? So he was going to go do it. But he also wanted to know his personal reward. Commitment, faith, those are the things I was going to say Jesus had, which he did. But that's what made David successful and eventually king over Israel. Okay, so this week, consider the people in your life. Are they committed to you? Who stands by you consistently? This doesn't mean you don't have conflicts with them occasionally where they back away and you maybe don't talk. I've got a neighbor. We have been friends now since, well, I bought my house in 2002. She moved in a couple years later and we became friends. And there have been times when that friendship just faltered, but we always come back as friends. She's consistently there for me and I for her. Who listens without criticism? Now, you know, they may criticize your actions at times if they don't believe what you're doing is good. You should be committed to them in a way that you're willing to listen, even if it hurts your feelings. But listen and be committed yourself in the relationship. But who encourages you? Who's there for you consistently, encouraging you, even though they may criticize your actions at times? These are the kind of people you want for friends and support. Encouragers, people who are committed to you for the long haul. So, what are your strengths? Things you can do even in tough situations. David had learned long before he went to fight the giant Goliath. God had helped him defeat a lion and a bear, some very tough opponents in his life. Faith in God gets me through anything. This is one of the first things God brought my way, faith. Okay, what are your weaknesses? Easy things you always have trouble with. Being involved in a group activity is very difficult for me. I go to group activities, but I struggle with them. Yet I know God wants me involved socially with people in group things. I don't go to every group. It depends upon a lot of things. I make my choices and I commit to certain outlooks or group social situations. Who's your support network? These are people committed to you. That could be family, friends, sponsor, mentor, a counselor, some type of support group, or people, persons, individuals. A sister, a friend, a study group at church or socially. Value learned in this section is self-discipline. This is learned when we make a commitment and follow through on our plans. And in the next section after this one, when we enter the action journey, we'll be dealing with the discipline more thoroughly. For now, we believe many things. Oh, wait a minute, let me get back up to the top. How to achieve the goals using your strengths to overcome a weakness. Your goal may be to have a closer relationship with God because you don't quite believe or trust. Your weakness is you don't believe God really loves you. He wasn't there for you. You know, my dad was an alcoholic. He died one because he couldn't quite give that up. He lost 2 marriages, so I had a lot of trouble believing God was even there for me because my dad was not there for me. My mom worked all the time to support the family. So from a very early age as a young child, I was on my own. So I never learned to trust and believe in people. So for me to commit to relationships was a huge step forward in my faith walk. But I did it because I knew God wanted me to. I'm willing to believe in God, for example, because, well, we can believe in many things about ourselves and in the world and the people around us, and not always by logic. Yes, science proves some things, but there's a lot of things that we believe. We know the sun rises and shines, even though we're not a scientist or been out in space where we can see it happening, but we trust that it does by faith, if you will. You may believe your mother loves you, or a particular piece of music lifts your spirits, and being close to a certain person makes you feel good. You can believe in these things, but may not be able to prove any of it objectively. Well, the same with God. Most of us can't prove it objectively necessarily. So it's important to realize this, especially if you're a hard-headed realist who insists on facts. And God says, without faith, you can't please him. So here I'm asking you to take a leap of faith and just trust that that's what I did in the beginning. I didn't really believe or trust in God. But when I went into recovery as an atheist, I said, nothing else has worked. So I'm going to trust in God, but you need to prove yourself to me. He's been doing it ever since. Okay. So commitment. The story of David and Goliath is in 1 Samuel chapter 17. Who stands by you consistently? Who listens without criticism? Who encourages you? So we just went over this already, so this is part of the things I'm asking you to answer. Your support network and God the Father. Are you willing to believe in God by faith alone? I challenge you to take that step of faith, even if you don't quite buy it. Read some of the scriptures in the New Testament especially, and learn to trust by faith. By reading the book of Luke, I came to an understanding of who Jesus Christ was. And I thought the love he offered was fabulous. I was willing to take that leap of faith and deepen my relationship with God because of that. Okay. This is an exercise for balance. I like the physical exercises that go along with some of this. I think they're hugely helpful. Grounding to this earth and reality for better balance. This is basic standing pose. You can even practice this at the home or the office. It can help you cool down on a warm day, according to health.net. Okay, to perform this pose, stand with your feet hip distance apart. Your feet slightly apart, in line with your hips. Distribute your weight evenly between your toes and heels, not leaning forward or back too much on your heels, but try to be stable. Slightly bend your knees and push your tail down, kind of like you're sitting on air. The air underneath you. Okay. Extend your arms towards the ceiling with your fingers interlaced. Lift your chest and inhale as you do, and hold that, with your arms raised to the sky. Imagine your feet rooted firmly, solidly to the ground. And I also learned years ago to imagine the silver cord also reaching up to the heavens and grounded between heaven and earth, stable, firmly rooted, thoroughly committed. Okay, hold the pose for a few seconds and then exhale and relax. Okay. Next, we're going to take the action journey devoted to discipline. This is Dr. Brandy Marks, Biblical